Hi there, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We're going to talk to you a little bit today around some of the risks and some of the areas of legislation that have come out in the UK and what's going to be going on as of October this year. So we are going to be looking at the golden thread, things that have come from the Building Safety Act, and then take you through how that's going to apply to retrofit buildings as well as new build buildings. Myself, I'm Varun Soni. I'm a partner at calfordseaden. I'm going to be giving you a lot of the legislative talk. I also work for Deluxe. I was one of the advisors for the Building Safety Act, and I was also one of the legislation writers for the Golden Thread, so know it pretty well.
And hello, my name is Justin Aroyeun. I graduated in 2016, and since then I've been looking at immersive technologies. So I'm more or less an innovation engineer within civil engineering. And I've joined calfordseaden recently as an associate information manager.
So just a little bit about calfordseaden, and I do apologise, I'll go through this very quickly. We are a multidisciplinary team, so we work in all sorts of sectors, based all across the UK. We have 6 offices. We deal very much in every single sector. Justin and myself are from the BIM and digital transformation team, but Justin's background is civil engineering, and my background is an architect. So we are quite diverse in what we try and preach and what we try and do. When it comes to the Building Safety Act, for those that don't know about it, it is the largest construction law in British history. It is a criminal act, and it took over from the 1984 Act itself. There's 6 parts. Part 4 concentrates very much on the golden thread. It went through 3 Queen speeches. It went through 1 King speech. But what you will find is it brings in a legal requirement around digital technology and the use of digital as a golden thread. So when we talk about the golden thread itself, the golden thread is about being able to provide an audit trail, a digital audit trail of information that allows somebody to understand the building during the design, the construction, and the operation of a building. And it is critical that we keep a golden thread throughout that life cycle of a building. When we think of information, we also have a set of principles that need to be met when it falls under the golden thread. One of the critical ones being accurate and trusted information. What that means is we don't want people to have information that could be stored in multiple areas which will be duplicated. So one source of information, one set of information is accurate. We know then that it's got an audit trail, it's got a log, things like version control, so we know what is the most up-to-date information at all given times. That accurate information also needs to be provided legally to residents. So residents need to be able to access the same information that we are using in order to understand their buildings, which is a very different change to what we've been doing previously in the UK. What we also find is information needs to be trusted. How do we know that the information that's going by from a change in, say, a maintenance schedule, how do we know that is correct? We've got to find a solution to show that it's trusted, that the information provided is right, manufacturer's details are correct, so that we're always up to date with the latest information.
So single source of truth has been a key element that's discussed right now when it comes to BIM. Single source of truth, we're looking at the golden thread will bring all information together in a single place. So meaning there's always a single source of truth. It would record the changes, the updates, additions and deletions that happen within design documentation of a BIM project. So this will reduce the duplication of information, email updates and multiple documents, and help drive and improve the accountability. Where is the information being changed from? Who is changing it? When was it changed? So once we can track all of this, a person is obviously responsible for the building and are encouraged to use a common data environment to ensure there is a controlled access of what's happening within the project itself.
So when we think of understanding information, it's very, very critical that although we have a single source of truth and accurate information, it's actually got to be understandable and it's got to be consistent. So where we're working on multiple buildings, it's very important that the information that we're receiving is always similar. So if we think in naming conventions as just a simple basis, think of how we name spaces. If we name spaces differently in every single building, but we have one asset manager looking after every single one of those buildings, it's easier if things are named in the same way so that they can actually understand every single building. Where we are at the moment, we tend to have our design teams, number, name, every single plan is different, and therefore we don't have that understandable and consistent information. Now think if we relay that to a fire plan, a plan that's going to go to a resident so that they understand how they are going to evacuate a building should there be a fire. If it's understandable and consistent, if it's something that they're moving from one property to another and it's always the same, it makes it easier for them to understand it. What's also very important is that we have structured information. Information that will be structured in a way that's easy to find. So if we think of something like schedules, COBE, these are certain tools that are available for us that will provide us with structured information that is also interoperable, will allow us to move into CAFM systems, or allow us to then look after this information. And that leads us on to accessible information. Making sure we have information that can be accessed by the right people at the right time, at all times, is critical. What we mean by this is not everybody needs to see everything. Somebody in customer services may just need to know that there is some information that needs to be provided to a maintenance rep, so the maintenance rep can go out and fix a sprinkler that is in a specific space and location. The maintenance rep might only actually need to know what the manufacturer is, what the model number is of that sprinkler and where it's located, and then if it's got anything else that needs to go with it. The asset manager may need to know other information. So they don't need to see everything, they just need to know what's there and what's right for their job in order to be able to access it. We're also doing some work with local fire authorities within the UK, and what the aim is this golden thread will end up linking in with local fire authorities so they always have up-to-date information as well on that given property, allowing them to make informed decisions at all costs. So now when we think of this golden thread, how do we pick it up on retrofit buildings?
So we're looking at point clouds. Can I have a quick show of hands of anybody that's heard of a point cloud or used point cloud recently? There we go, that's great. That's great to know. So obviously it's a great surveying tool and it's more or less next level, isn't it? We're using cameras such as the Faro 3330X, if anybody's heard of it, or the Matterport camera, which is quite industry standard. It's accurate to give or take 2 millimeters. So you're getting that single source of truth, and also photography evidence of any changes that could be tracked on the project itself. We can use the as-built point clouds and also overlay it with designs to then do clash detection, and it just opens up a variety of uses that we can use when it comes to design changes. So it's proven as a stepping stone in digital construction and infrastructure itself, and it's something that we're definitely looking at more closely. There's also using innovative platforms. We're finding ways to track and record these changes, and this is helping us with linking us to legislations such as Part L, BS 8644-1, so helping us with fire safety, and also 19650 itself as well, which is obviously it ties down to how we formulate BIM in general, how we're delivering that as a service to our clients. So longevity, durability, and shareability. How can this information be shared? What format are we sharing this between ourselves and our clients? And how are we presenting this information? What do we do with this information? The golden thread information needs to be formatted in a way that can be easily handed over and maintained over the entire lifetime of the building itself. In particular terms, this is likely to mean that it needs more aligning with the rules around the open data and principles of interoperability, so that information can be handed over to the future and still be assessed. So we're looking at a common data environment and having that audit trail for 5 years, 10 years down the line for us to see exactly what's happened throughout the lifespan of that building. Information should be shared information should be able to be shared and accessible by contractors who use different softwares, and if the building is sold, and the golden thread information must be accessible for the new owner. So this information shouldn't be lost between each other. It shouldn't be lost between different contractors, and it's something that should be always linked to the building itself.
So when we actually start thinking about the golden thread in design and construction, think about the fact that information will always have to be relevant and proportionate to what we're actually trying to achieve. So when we think about design and construction, think about the fact that the likes of building control, building safety regulators, they're going to be involved with having to pick up this information. What they're going to want to see is, as part of your golden thread, who's doing what, why they're doing it, what kind of information are you getting. Then we start looking at the technical specifications. What kind of information are we getting within that? How do we actually know how this building is constructed? So how are we proving that in a digital format? So think about the fact that, are we actually looking at the principles of BIM as building information modeling, or the principles of BIM as better information management? And that's what's critical when we start thinking about the golden thread. It is very much around information management and information management processes. So think about how we think about change processes, change protocols. These are all legalities that we need to be able to show as part of the construction control log, and something that we're going to need to show throughout that design and construction life cycle. Once we then go over to the operability side and using it on operation, we have to think about how are we keeping that audit trail going, how are we keeping that log going. So think about how are we actually showing every 5 years by law that we can show them a spreadsheet to say, here's the evidence that every single quarter we've looked after these fire doors, every single year we've maintained these fire doors, and these ones were changed at this given time by this person because they are competent. If we can't show that, by law, we are not allowed to put a resident in that building under a higher risk building. And should we put a resident in that building, you're looking at a £5,000 a day fine, followed by decanting a building after 6 months, followed by a minimum of 2 years in jail. As I said, it's the largest ever construction law in history. So, in conclusion, when we think of the golden thread, think of the fact that we are looking at ISO 19650. We mentioned ISO 19650 before. We also mentioned the standard BS 8644-1. You will find that under that legislation, it says follow the UK BIM framework, second line of that standard. You'll also find under the consultation that came out for the Building Safety Act, believe it or not, second line said, follow the UK BIM framework. And the reason being is, follow the information management processes, you will follow the golden thread. It's that simple. If anyone has any questions, we'll be free to take them. I think we've got about 5 minutes left. If there are any questions.
Yeah, I have a question about, you mentioned point clouds. And my main question is, because there are many vendors, you know, whether it's like Faro, there's Navis, you know, and they're all showing different solutions, but there doesn't seem to be a standard in terms of the accuracy of what each system delivers, right? The main vendors of laser scanning, you know them, right? But then we have other vendors that have different technologies, like with 360 images, which is photogrammetry, right? Matterport as well. Now they just got started using laser. Their latest system has a LiDAR in it. But should there be some kind of standardization as to what each of those systems spec out in their accuracy? Because they all, for some reason, and no one seems to be looking at this problem, they all spec accuracy in a different way. Matterport will say, we do 98% accuracy. Someone else will say, we are survey grade. And when you actually use the device, obviously you'll have different results. And no one speaks about it. Of course, after they have the device, they'll have those problems. But at the end of the day, my main concern being all these companies trying to get on board with using more accurate systems, right? When you are also trying to, with the golden thread concept, standardize. What are your thoughts about this problem in the industry that no one seems to be looking at?
Yeah, that's a really good question you've asked. And I think what we found is there's a reason why we've named the Matterport and the Faro 3.3 because they tell you exactly how much accuracy they have at what distance. So the Matterport will tell you 2 millimeters from 5 meters, and give or take 4 to 7 millimeters from 10 meters away from the scanned point. Whereas I don't want to be done for defamation, but you have a lot of other companies that would say 98%. But what is 98%? You know, so I think what we do is we do our own internal quality control, and we make sure that we know exactly what sort of distance we're looking for. Obviously, we're working with employers' information requirements. They all have requirements for how much accuracy and tolerance that they allow on each project. So we need to make sure it abides by the tolerance given by our clients to ensure that we're still giving them the quality they require. But that is some. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, one of the things that would be really helpful is we should all follow a plain language, let's be honest.
Yeah, that's my main question, because we have standards for everything, right?
Of course, and that is something that I'm sure the industry will be looking at. It will be something that will be forced upon, certainly within the UK. Even if you start looking at construction products, there is a lot of work in the background going on with how we actually define what goes into a construction product, what attributes need to be there. Can you actually use a different definition? Well, no, going forward, you're actually going to have to use the same definitions. That's why they're bringing out templators, libraries, so that every single product will use the same. It's only a matter of time before these cameras will actually end up having to go down the same route, right, because clients will struggle to be able to set out a specification of what they need if every single camera is saying it in a different way. So yes, standardization is going to be key. Plain language is going to also be key. It's the only way this is going to move forward.
Thank you.
Hello guys. Thank you very much for the. I want to add to your answer to the guy. Well, I'm a quality control surveyor as part of what I do, and I must say it really depends partially on your surveyor as well as your technology. If you have a capable person, first of all. Additionally, it's about the adjustment networks. Each site should have an adjustment network which is part of the golden thread that actually oversees the quality control of the project. So usually it's not just a one-drop solution. You should have a multi-station or an equipment that actually verifies your results that you get. So usually, if we work in a construction site, you have polygons or benchmarks that you check in one method, and then you validate them in another method, such as laser scanners or drones, and it's usually both things together or three things together. Thank you very much, guys.
Yeah, I was just going to add on to the point made before about the plain, sort of a plain language, and I think the question I have at the moment is just around sort of fire IE and sort of the data side.
I'm sure your dad's been talking to you about it.
Of course, yeah. But it's obviously just, from my understanding, it's your thoughts on that at the moment, because there's still a lot of question marks, of course, isn't there, around there. And
well, you already know I'm one of the authors of Fiery, and I obviously work quite closely with your dad on this at the moment. It's quite an interesting one, because when people start thinking of Fiery, they think of it being overcomplicated. Your dad was able to show quite quickly it's actually not very complicated. It's actually quite simple when you break it down. We're doing a lot of work as BSI, as NEMA as well, on defining that standard even further. There is a further 2 parts that are going to come out, and those 2 parts will break down Fiery and the principles and processes of Fiery that go with that. What I would say, and this is not to get everybody to go to it, but come to Symmetry's event in October, because me and your dad are going to be talking about it in quite a lot of detail. But the work that is going on in the background is very much about aligning it to how we can actually break out information. You could use Fiery in any way you wanted. You could use it as a schedule. It's about being able to say, we're not asking for a fire rating, but we're actually asking, what is your resistance to fire? What is your reaction to fire? Where is your door located? What space is it coming from, and what space is it going to? Because at the end of the day, when the fire officer gets that and they're about to go into an apartment because there's a fire, they need to have the correct information. You know yourself, Tom, right now, there is no information like that. We don't even know half the time what our walls are made of. You see with everything that's just happened with RAC as well, we're not in a position to even know what buildings are actually going to be falling and are going to be crumbling in the next 7 years. So having just detailed information and even in a schedule is all we're looking for, and that's all Fiery was ever about. But I would actually say, if they go on, I think your dad on LinkedIn posted something a while ago, which was a PDF spreadsheet of showing how the attributes break down.
Is that
I think it was
Kobe, is it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that was me who posted.
Oh, that might be
Yeah.
you. But that was Kobe to Fiery, and that was really useful. Yeah, and I would highly recommend that people look at that.
Tom Rudge, by the way, if anyone wants to see that graph. But no, thank you. Great response.
Thanks, Tom. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.